Welcome to Kingdom Conversations Women's Edition. My name is Crystal Fulton, and I'm here with my lovely co-hosts. I will let them introduce themselves.
Tori Anderson.
And Alicia Halliburton.
So let's go ahead and just start with birthing. So how was y'all's experience with birthing? I'll go ahead and I'll start. For me, because my birthing experience, so it was in a hospital. I actually got diagnosed with preeclampsia, which is, for those who don't know what it is, it's when you have high blood pressure during pregnancy. And I feel like a lot of it was due to what I talked about in the first session, where it was just stress. It was crazy because I did not have high blood pressure throughout my pregnancy. It was just right at the end where it showed up. And with twins, they were not playing about that. So it was just going up and down, up and down. I didn't want to have a C-section. So they had to do an emergency C-section at 36 weeks. And I was trying to stall as much as I could because I didn't want to have, like I said, I didn't want to have a C-section. I had seen a C-section. It wasn't pretty, and I didn't want it to happen to me. So, but it had to happen. So we ended up getting a C-section. My daughter, she was 5 pounds and some ounces, and I'll explain why I don't know that in our towards the end. And then my son was 3 pounds. And so anyway, my son was taken to the NICU, and I was pretty much sent off to recovery. So after I got into recovery, everything kind of went blurry from there because they overdosed me on magnesium, actually. Because of my blood pressure, they gave me mag to try to bring it down, and they gave me too much. So when I was recovering, they had, the PCA pump, which is, patient controlled anesthesia. It's like pain medicine. So they had me on that. And I already had this magnesium in my system already. So I was pretty much out of it, just totally out of it. And I just was in and out. There's a lot I don't remember. And that's why I don't remember how much, like the ounces on my babies, because I was out. Like, I remember holding my baby, holding Micaiah, briefly holding Joel. And then after that, I don't remember. So that's what happened with that. And so Joel was in the NICU. And so then when I came to, Octavian had called me on FaceTime, and he was trying to show me Joel. And I noticed that my eyes were not aligned. Like, yeah, it was crazy. So I was like, something is not right, Octavian. Like, something's not right. And I was like, you need to call somebody. So at that time, I believe he called pastor, and they started praying. And I think he talked to the nurse. And after that, like I said, I was just in and out. I ended up coming to, and it was like a whole bunch of medical professionals around me. And I knew what they were doing. They were testing to see if I had a stroke. And then I went down to get a CT. I remember that. And then came back up. And I remember the nurse telling me to push the button for pain. And I'm totally out of it. I'm not feeling anything. So I ended up hiding the button underneath I remember hiding the button underneath my legs so that I could not get any more pain meds, to try to get whatever was in my system that was causing me to be so groggy out. So finally, I started coming more coherent. I remember I was in a different room on a different floor, and that's where things started kind of coming around. I remember Micaiah was in the room with Octavian, and it was a really, really, because I don't want to be long, but it was just a really, really trying time. Like, it wasn't a really good birthing experience. And I couldn't get out of bed, so I didn't get to see Joelle for probably about a couple of days. We finally got around to seeing Joelle. But Octavian, he saw him every day. So yeah, it was tough. So it really changed my perspective on hospital birth, nonetheless. And it really made me realize how the statistics on Black women having babies and dying either postpartum or while they're having babies, how real that can be and how easily that can happen, and how it's just so important for us to really take care of ourselves. And like, my hat's off to you guys doing the home births, because yeah, I would have so much preferred that. And it was just, yeah, it was a really, really tough time.
It sounds like it. Like, wow, I'm just taking it all in because that's the first time I've heard that story. And I can only imagine what that must have been like, going through it, and then not only going through it, but processing it, afterwards. So I'm just wondering, like, how did you deal with that? How did you deal with, just processing your birth story and experience? Like, because I probably would be angry, and just all kinds of emotions. So I'm just wondering, how did you deal with that?
I really tried not to think about it too much. And I at first, you know what, to be honest with you, at first I was like, I want to sue them. I want to sue them. I'm like, I'm a nurse. Like, why would they even, But then it was just like, you know what? I have to focus on my babies. I have to focus on taking care of them and moving forward, and not like just be stressed out trying to find an attorney and doing this and doing that. So I just redirected my focus, but it was devastating because I'm like, I wanted that beautiful birthing experience. Being able to tell people the ounces of my babies, I just stuff like that. I just felt like it was just snatched away from me. And yeah, it was frustrating, but I just redirected, just thought about something else, thought about my babies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you did that. Go ahead, Tori.
No, just one thing that you said is that they overdosed you on magnesium. Um, I actually have a friend, the same thing happened to her.
Mm,
Her blood pressure went up, and they were just pretty much like, you got to have this baby now. And they induced her, and her baby was fine. And something happened right after she had the baby. I can't remember. But one thing is that she said is that they overdosed her on magnesium as well. So it just made me wonder also how you were saying, Crystal, just how Black women are treated. And I mean, and the statistics for Black women dying from C-sections and postpartum is crazy, because I know, and I mentioned it last time about how my doctor was pressuring, I felt as though she was pressuring me to have a C-section. And I was like, no, I'm coming home. I'm not, having a C-section. So no, I just thought that was interesting, but go ahead, Alicia.
Well, yeah, I guess, I guess I'm still processing it, because that is tough. And I love what you said about just redirecting your focus, because one thing I know about the enemy is he will use and find any crack or crevice that he can. And a huge access door is offense. And so just by you guarding your heart and choosing not to focus on everything that went wrong and choosing a different way and a different perspective, I think that was really wise and just just wise of you. And I'm just thinking of people who may have had a similar experience. Like, hopefully they can be encouraged by that, because ultimately, you're still here, and it's a testament to, like, the Father's still faithful. Your babies are healthy. So even though he tried it, even though the devil tried it, like, everything, you guys are safe. And I think for me, that's kind of the approach I had to take as well, because I also did not get the experience that I wanted when I had my hospital birth. And this is not to bash hospitals and say all hospitals are bad and you can't have, a good experience in the hospital. But we're just sharing our truth and sharing what happened with us. So with Judah, I was such a typical, first time mom. We brought our whole house with us to the hospital. And I remember, I feel like my first mistake was going to the hospital way too soon. I remember, I started feeling some things, feeling some contractions. They were 5 minutes apart. And so, of course, Demetrius jumping in the first time dad mode, he was like, well, he actually called my mom. And when he told her that they were 5 minutes apart, she was like, go to the hospital. And I just remember being like, I don't want to go to the hospital. Like, I'm not ready yet. And I wish I would have kind of stuck to that. But anyway, at the time, I think I was already past my due date again. I was like 40, almost 41 weeks at the time. And so basically they were like, and by the time I got checked in, my contractions had completely stopped. And so basically they were like, because you're past 40 weeks, we're keeping you. So like it or not, you're going to have this baby one way or the other. And from there, it was like I was on a time clock, and I knew I wanted to have a natural birthing experience without any medication. I had all my good music and, all the things that I felt like were going to help me to get to that point. And I labored for about 18 hours. So what they ended up doing, they wanted to induce me, but I was like, no, I don't want that. So they ended up breaking my water, and that kicked things into gear. And then I feel they were just doing all kinds of stuff to me to try to make Judah come out, and Judah wasn't having it. So essentially, after like 18 hours of laboring and contractions, and they came and checked me, and they were like, you're still 4 centimeters. I was like, give me an epidural now. Like, do not wait. Just do it right now. And so I ended up getting the epidural, and it wasn't working. And I remember them saying, oh, you're tall. It may just take a little bit longer, whatever. And I'm like, nope, I'm still feeling stuff. And so essentially I ran out of time, and they weren't able to, the anesthesiologist wasn't able to come back. So I'm like, now I have done something I didn't want to do, and it's not even helping me. I was like hyperventilating because I was in so much pain. So long story short, I was able to have a vaginal birth that I wanted, but there were so many interventions. It wasn't the story that I wanted. I had a significant tear. It just wasn't the birth that I envisioned. And while I was really grateful that, I got here safely, Judah got here safely, I definitely felt some type of way. Like, man, I wish that they had just let my body do what it was designed to do, instead of, it was like, because you have been here this many hours, you have this much time, or you're gonna have to either get induced, get a C-section, like basically your time is up. So that was probably the thing that bothered me the most. So, with Anaya, I was like, redemption story. We got to do things different. So yeah, but I don't want to, Tori, I'll give you the opportunity if you wanted to share like what it was like for you.
My story was similar to yours, Alicia. I didn't want to go to the doctor. DJ called Pastor Renee, and Pastor Renee was like, the baby is on the way. And I remember we got to the hospital, and I cried in the parking lot because I'm like, they just gonna check me, it's gonna hurt, and they're gonna send me home. But because my doctor was like, well, you 2 days away from your due date, and he was on call, he was like, just go ahead and get checked in. And I was at 4 centimeters already. And so that was at like 9 o'clock. So they let me labor all night or whatever. And still the next morning, I was still only at 4 centimeters. And so that's when they start pumping me up with stuff. And then around 12 o'clock, it was time to push. And I pushed for 2.5 hours. And at about an hour and a half in, the doctor came in and was like, I'm going to give you 30 more minutes to an hour to push. If she's not out, I'm taking you in for a C-section. And apparently the roar went up. So I had to push her down and push her out. And I had a really bad tear. And I actually had to get physical therapy after my tear. And I don't know if y'all, how much y'all know, but until that happened to me, I didn't know anything about getting pelvic floor physical therapy. Had no idea about that. And just how helpful it was. And, we all know people who've had babies, obviously, but I didn't know anyone who experienced that. I didn't know anyone who was having the trouble that I had. Everybody was just like, when it came to intimacy with my husband, I was like, oh, you just need some lube. I'm like, yeah, that's not it. So I ended up switching doctors again after I had my baby, and she was able to help me and get me in touch with some people who were really able to help me. But I guess the biggest thing that I regret from my first pregnancy is just not being educated enough. You know, a lot of time people think just because something is natural, they think it's going to be easy. And that wasn't the case. I thought that, oh, my body can do this. I'm just going to go in labor and I'm going to have this baby. And that wasn't that. So with the second go round, we took daddy doula classes. I took a breastfeeding class. You know, I had my midwife. I can't tell you how many YouTube videos I watched. I read books, you know, just taking time to educate myself more on birth. And I did. I had a great home birth. It was, but also I guess the biggest thing that I learned with my second baby was I learned to advocate for myself. Instead of just allowing the doctor to say, this is what we're going to do. Like, and one thing my midwife would tell me all the time is that medical professionals, they advise you. They don't tell you what to do. And so one thing I really learned was like, okay, nobody's going to, I think, what was that? Molly, they used to say it all the time, Alicia. Nobody's going to stand up for you but you, or something she used to say like that. But nobody's going to advocate for yourself but you. And that was one of the biggest things I learned with my second baby. So I don't want to take up too much time because I could talk about home birthing forever.
No, I'm so glad you brought that up about like natural should be easy. But what they don't tell you is birth is so medicalized now, especially in the US. It's almost impossible for natural to be easy because there's so many interventions. There's so many like just things that are just really unnecessary. And this is another one of the things that I feel real strongly about. So, I mean, I'm so glad that we have learned a lot more and that really helped us the second go around. But I'm also, I just hate that so many people don't know how to advocate. They don't have a good support system. They don't have the tools and the resources. They don't even have access to a birthing center or a midwife or, all of these things that we almost didn't have access to and had to literally like search to find, or you, in your case, like fell upon this experience that you still may not have otherwise had because it's so like what if Kim didn't have a spot open? Like it's so few midwives in this area. So anyways.
Yeah, and even with the C-section, even when I told Kim, that was her name, my midwife, one thing she said is that she sees in the city of Memphis how Black women are treated when it comes to birth as opposed to white women. And I was like, if you work in this and you telling me this, like what's really going on in the industry? So just back to what you were saying, Crystal, like taking care of ourselves, like health, and just don't take what the doctors say and keep on going, because even people in my close circle was just saying, well, I wouldn't switch doctors because they talking about a C-section, or I think you mentioned it last time, Alicia, like the idea of home birthing was just like crazy, like why are you doing that? And then some people, nobody even asked us, do y'all take y'all kids to the doctors? I was like, I had a baby at home. Like, I mean, but yeah.
Yep, that you're so right. Like on the one hand, it's like you want to get the care that you need, and you don't even expect the backlash and the stigma that comes with you wanting to advocate for yourself and do what your body was designed to do. Like that blew my mind. I was like, wow. I mean, I get it because I know that people usually are uncomfortable with what they don't know about,
right.
But this should be the normal. And also people did this for, thousands of years, no problems, like, but because people don't know and they've only seen it a certain way. I was watching this documentary and it was talking about how at a certain point, I want to say it was like around the 70s when, C-sections became more popular. It was like, it was almost like a commercial for a Kit Kat or something. Like they made it seem like it was the thing to do. Like, make sure, it's the easy thing to do. Just take your baby and then you're done. Like, so anyways, yeah, it really bothers me about that. And it surprised me about the stigma, kind of like what you were talking about on the end.
Yeah, no, I got mad at somebody one day and I was like, well, Jesus wasn't born in a hospital.
But it's so true though. Like, what were they doing back in the day? Like, how did Yeshua come? Like, it's so true. You were saying, Alicia, our bodies naturally do this thing.
Yeah.
And everything about having a hospital birth is totally like the opposite of what our bodies naturally do, like laying down. Gravity is actually supposed to help. Tori, I thought about that when you said door went up. Well, you were probably laying down, right? When that was happening. Mm-hmm. And so it's just amazing. Like when I was in school, we were learning about, delivery and all of that. And it was just amazing to me how our bodies adapt and how, like, when we have the child, the umbilical cord is the exact length to reach the breast so that the baby can feed and still be attached. And how we have mechanisms in our body that produce all the nutrients needed for our baby. Like, our body just naturally does this. Like, we're not asking it to, it just naturally does that. And how when we breastfeed the child, how that sends signals to our brain to cause our uterus to contract so that the placenta can come out. But instead, we have other things in place where it's like, okay, let's induce the labor. Let's get this placenta out. Let's, it's not put the baby to the breast so that the placenta can come out natural. It's so much. And there's so many other things and complications that can come with forcing things to happen when it naturally just can happen. Like, if there's a small part of the placenta that's left inside of the mom, it can cause a woman to bleed out, and you can actually be really, really fatal during birth. So it's just one of those things that Elohim just made our bodies to naturally do this thing. He didn't make our bodies for us to be, under a knife, or, it's natural and it needs to happen naturally. But I will say, with my experience, I lost sight of Elohim, and I lost sight of trusting him with my own birthing and all of that. And the enemy was allowed to come in when I was like stressing about stuff that I didn't, and not going to the Father. So I'm sharing that so it can be a testament to someone else who might be experiencing a lot of stress during pregnancy or whatever, that they, follow the Father, that they go to the Father, go before the Father, and really trust him, as opposed to trusting everything else that's going on around you, and not be that stony heart, and, be that good ground, and allow Elohim to just work through you and all of that. So yeah, I don't want to take up too much time, but I just wanted to say that, like, our bodies are amazing. And if we just let it do what it does, then there's a lot of things that just would not happen.
Right. Yeah. And I know one thing, Crystal, I just wanted to mention real quick that when we let our bodies do what they naturally do, with my first baby, they checked me like 4 or 5 times, like to see if how many centimeters I was. But with my second baby, I was in labor before my midwife checked me. And she was like, I only checked you because you didn't seem like you were sure. So like, just goes back to something that, when you're that far and you're pregnant, the first thing people ask you, well, how dilated are you? And dilation is not an indicator that you are ready to give birth. you can sit at 8 centimeters for like 2-3 weeks, and you just sitting at 8 centimeters like that baby's not coming. And so really just going back to just like letting our bodies naturally do what it was designed to do. Because I think you said, Alicia, you can almost kind of just show up for birth, because it's going to do what it needs to do. But I also love, Crystal, how you said that the enemy had access. Like people want to blame the enemy for everything, but he can't come unless you give him access, because scripture says that he roams around seeking whom he may devour. So we got to give them access, whether we have those doors open or not. But his vision is to kill, steal, and destroy us. And so he's going to take absolutely every opportunity, and even using you when you're vulnerable after giving birth, that's a very open, I don't even know how to say that, but you just got to be guarded, and yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that, how you said that you gave him access. So yeah.
And it's true. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's true, because like he had been after, honestly, the enemy had been after my reproductive system way before I got pregnant. So he just wouldn't stop. He just didn't stop. It was me that stopped, So yeah. But I thank Elohim that he showed himself strong. And like Alicia, like you said, my babies are healthy, they're here, and it's all because of the Father. It truly is because of the Father.
Yeah. And even as you're talking, I'm just thinking about like grace and mercy. And I know, sometimes people abuse the idea, like almost in a haughty, like pompous, I don't know, like some people are bold, way bolder than me. Because I know for you, Crystal, like it wasn't necessarily like intentional, like I'm just gonna, like you were going through a lot, that sort of thing, but you also are not making an excuse. And I think that's what some people do is, make an excuse. But at the same time, I'm also so thankful that even when we do miss it, that the Holy Spirit and the Father, he's so mindful of us that he'll give us the opportunity to get it right and to get back on track. And I'm just so thankful that you made choices to do that. So, and that you're able to be honest and share like that's where you were, but that's not where you stayed.
Right.
And so I'm thankful that you made those choices to kind of to grow, and that the Father's mercy, he showed himself merciful. Scripture says his mercies are new every morning. Like, so we have the opportunity. It's just, what are we going to do with it?
Right.
So I definitely wanted to commend you for that. And something else you were talking about, like how our bodies are just supposed to, how we were designed to do certain things. And when I say it, honestly, even as you were talking just about just how intricate and how amazingly designed our bodies are, it like brings me to tears when I really think about it. And the more I learn, and just how intentional, and the thought that people are trying to mimic that and recreate that, and poison that, redefine the family, like it's sickening. And the more that I learn, I'm just so much in awe of the Father. And he's just so intelligent, man. But I will never forget with Anaya, because with Judah, like I said, there were so many interventions that I didn't really get to experience birth in its full form. And so with Anaya, so of course, from Judah, I learned, don't go to the hospital too early. In this case, I actually birthed at a birthing center, even though I had a midwife. I didn't have my baby at home. And so it just so happened that my midwife was off that weekend. And so, that was one access door I had to keep closed of fear. Like I literally had to work with someone that I met once. I knew it was a possibility that my midwife would not be available, and she was not. So, immediately the enemy was trying to like get me to, and I was like, I'm not even thinking about that. So anyway, so we have been doing all the things we could to try to get Anaya like out. Because like I said, they were also saying, if you don't have her by this day, then you're going to the hospital. Like, we have to do it. So I had that pressure that I also had to, like, it's such a mental game. The more, I think about it, like, it's such a mental game. And Tori, like you were just saying about that access door, like the enemy, he was trying to play on all of that stuff and play on my emotions. And I was just like, nope, close that door, close it. Like, no, I'm not letting you get me off focus. So anyway, so we, the day before the day that they were like, you're going to have to go, I started feeling some things. I'm like, okay, I mean, this ain't the first time. I felt it and then they stopped. I felt it and then it would stop. So I started feeling some things and then it just got progressively closer, like really fast. I'm trying not to make this such a long story, but there's another component that came out, and I'll never forget the conversation I had with Demetrius, and we were talking about, should birth be really painful? Because, there's a scripture that talks about, Tori, your face. There's a scripture that talks about, Hava or Eve, and how the scripture says, like, you will have pain during childbirth and on all of that. But also, we know that we have been restored. So is that still true? Like, does that mean I have to suffer and feel like I'm going to die, as I described it, which I shouldn't say that, but that's what I told Demetrius. I was like, I don't feel like I'm going to die yet. So no, we're not leaving to go. So anyway, so that was another way that the Father showed himself faithful. And I was just so amazed because I learned about, oxytocin and what they call the what is it, fear, pain, it's fear, pain, contraction,
Fear, pain, and pleasure. Fear, pain,
contraction, no, contraction, fear, pain, contraction, fear, pain. And basically what it's saying is, when you get trapped in this cycle, like that, a contraction means, when you associate that, because you're having a contraction, that means you have to be suffering. And that's not true. Like, we have connected those things, but that's not true. And so you have to like kind of unlearn that and learn about oxytocin, relaxation, like, because the Father, he did, he created our bodies to contract and y'all know, like, the whole process. But when I say I was so relaxed during my contractions, it was not painful to me. It was not painful to me. Like, I cannot, it was weird. Like, I felt them. I knew that they were really strong. I knew that they were really intense, but it wasn't painful. And I know it was because I had meditated on the word. And also I was convinced in my head that, yes, Hava, she did mess up. Yep, that's what she did, but I've been redeemed. And the scripture says, by the stripes of Yeshua, I'm healed. And the scripture, so I focused on that. And it was not like that. It was not unbearable. It was not painful for me. And so now what did hurt was when that baby was coming out. And so when you were talking about like how it's just natural and it should be easy, I will never forget. So finally we get to the birth center at like midnight, right? And so they're, getting all the things brought in, getting set up, finally get me in my room. And everyone else was gone because we had just got there. And then all of a sudden I was like, I gotta push. And then 10 seconds later, like, I was pushing her out. Like, it was so strong. I didn't feel that with Judah, but it was like, whether I wanted to do it or not, Anaya had decided now was the time to come, and she was coming out. And like, just that sensation of, like, it was like almost an out of body thing, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, I cannot control this. My body is pushing this baby out. And I don't even remember the times, like, I would have to pull up my phone, but within 10 minutes, that baby was out. Like, we were not at the birth center even an hour, and she was out. And it was just so, like, it went so quick. I was almost like, wait, did that just happen? Like, what just happened? So I finally got to witness, like, even like you were talking about, Crystal, just the intricacy of how our bodies are designed and see that full process. And all I could say was, thank you, Lord. Like that's, I just kept saying that after she came out, I was like, thank you, Lord. Like I was so tired, but I was so thankful because I was like, wow, that was so beautiful. And to get to experience that, you know, especially after like what happened with my first birth. So it can happen, you know, and I'm grateful to be able to have witnessed that.
I have a question, Alicia. Did you say you had an epidural with the first baby with Judah?
I did.
You did. Okay.
Yep, I did. And wasn't no medicine, wasn't no with the second go around. It was like, I mean, I knew like that was, and I felt such intense pain with Judah. And I talked about this in the other episode about how I was so fearful of that pain, and to go through the process again, and how I had to uproot that fear in order to, and I know that was also crucial to me being able to stay calm and really relaxed, you know, this second time. So I'm just so grateful that, you know, I was able to do that, because that's a lot going through a fully natural birth, you know, like it definitely can be intense. But the Father helped me and carried me through that whole thing. And all I would say is the ring of fire is fire. But outside of that, like it was not painful for me. It was a lot of pressure, but it wasn't pain. I guess my body, I just didn't interpret it as that. I don't know.
That's amazing that the one thing that you feared, and that's how the enemy works, that one thing that you feared, you didn't even experience.
Right.
And that's exactly how he works. It's just false, like just totally false. How we can be afraid of something, and then if it were to actually happen, it's nothing. Like, if we actually face that thing that we feared, it's nothing.
But that'll preach. Can we just take this outside of birth for 1 second? Because that is so true in life. Like that's how he gets us. Like we get so fearful and so focused on the thing or the situation instead of focusing on the answer, which is found in the word. Like greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. We can overcome anything. So no matter what it looks like, no matter, you know, how big, like I'm thinking about your diagnosis. Like they literally told Crystal, they diagnosed her with cancer, fibroids, endometriosis. And she has twins. Like I will never get over that. So like, man, it's just I think about, I've heard people say fear is false evidence appearing real. And that's the truth. Like it's false at the end of the day. It's just it's your perception.
Yeah, that whole belief system. Like it's just amazing how if we can believe something false, and I think I said this in one of our episodes, that your perception is your reality, and how your perception could be false. That belief system could be false based on like something like fear. You just totally believe it, and it's so true in your mind that you've made it your truth, and it's all false. And I can really attest to that. Sorry, Tori, you can go ahead and go if you have something to say.
Sorry, I forgot. I'm sorry. I was listening and just forgot. But I did have a question that kind of relates to birth and postpartum. I know we were mentioning families, but how was you guys as husbands during this process? Them being the source and leader of the family, you know, how did their role, or how were they in them being in position, how did that affect you in birthing and postpartum? So whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, wow, that's a really good question. And it's funny because I was gonna say we should have did an episode with them to also talk about their perspective, because Crystal, I was really even interested to see like what what it was like for him, you know, going through that, seeing his wife go through the things, you know, that he did. And, you know, that would be something, you know, a whole nother thing. But what was it like? I feel like the biggest lesson I learned in this past year is listen to your husband. period. Like I have such respect for him, and such just, I don't know, like my admiration has grown for him through this process, and seeing how he, cares for me and treats me, and but also seeing him in his role, because you mentioned something that was key, like him being in position as the strong leader of our family. And so from the time we got there, I'm thinking about Anaya's birth. He was praying in the spirit, praying in the spirit, praying in the spirit. Him and my mom praying in the spirit. And that brought me comfort, because ultimately I knew, like, I was covered, so it was almost like I didn't have to, because there were little things that were trying to come up or whatever, and I was just focused on this. Like it allowed me to just stay in my lane, because I didn't have to worry about, like, he was covering me. I didn't have to try to cover myself, essentially. So I would say for me, that was really huge, and I was able to see that. I see it, anyways, but it was like a tangible, like, oh wow, I'm covered. Like I'm good. I don't have to, try to do that for myself. So that was one example I thought about.
With Octavian, when that thing happened where they thought I had a stroke, I just remember seeing all the medical professionals in the room, and I just happened to look down and like towards the foot of my bed, and I saw Octavian, and it was like he was the calm in the midst of this whole storm. And that's the one thing I would say that I admire so much, is like, he, maybe on the inside he was feeling something, but he was just so calm, and he knew who to call. He knew to start praying. And like you said, Alicia, you knew that I knew that I was covered in prayer with Octavian. And I don't know what it would have been like if I looked down and he looked nervous, like, or if he was like all out of order, like what that would have done for me. But I know when I did look down and I saw him and I saw how calm he was, it really gave me like a sense of peace, And so, yeah, I would say that was like a major thing, especially in that moment, at that moment, because I had no clue what was going on. All I knew is that I couldn't wake up all the way, and I was just going in and out, and I didn't know what was going on. So to wake up and see my husband just calm, and all these medical professionals are like around me, trying to figure out what's going on. And I remember him telling me he called pastor, and then they took me away. So yeah.
Wow.
See, wow, just listening to that, and just how husbands are the source of the family, and still just like seeing two other women, like, obviously birth has a lot to do with women, but definitely how important husbands are. I definitely don't want to undermine them, and just how, just people just seem to throw the men to the side when we're talking about birthing and women's issues. And so definitely just how important they are. And y'all husbands are great, because mine fell asleep after the baby came.
He was real calm.
Very calm. But I will say this, that like, even up to Gabriel coming, like, because I had Gabriel Tuesday morning, but I had been having contractions. My contractions were about 15 minutes apart for 2 days. So like, even through that, like, he was still right there. And I think he had left and went to another friend's house for a while, but he was still like right there checking on me. Or, even like before I had Gabriel, like the week before I had started having contractions, they weren't major, but he had to go to work. Like, he had to do some stuff for our business. And so he called my dad to come sit with me. And so he's always like, how y'all was saying, just making sure that we're covered, making sure, in the roar, I should say, as well. But when it came down to it, like in labor, DJ gonna pick up the phone and call Pastor Renee. He gonna call her. He gonna call somebody, like, but, and I learned to appreciate that, because at first I was like, leave them alone. Like, you call them all the time. But I learned to appreciate that, he acknowledges that he doesn't know everything. He acknowledges that he's still young and still learning, and everything is new. Like, we're not even 30 yet, so a lot of things are still really new to us. And so and honestly, just looking at my husband, like, when he went to sleep, like, he wasn't gonna go to sleep till he knew that everything was okay.
Right.
So, I can appreciate that. And with both babies, right when I don't know how he know, but right before them babies come out, he is right there. Like, I can't tell you, and Alicia, you may know, I don't know where DJ was during most of the labor. I knew he was around, but when it was time for Gabriel to come out, DJ was right there, like, praying in the spirit, encouraging me, and telling me I can do it and things like that. So, as y'all was saying, I drew from that. Like, ultimately, Elohim was my source, but I still depended on my husband just to speak words of encouragement over me, so yeah. But yeah, I was just curious as to, how y'all husbands were. And even with postpartum, he gonna call Dr. Renee. He gonna call him. So yeah.
Daddy DJ don't play. That DJ had me rolling. And I will say this because, obviously Tori was in like labor mode. And I know DJ was super, like, you can tell, I mean, I shouldn't say obviously, but he cares about Tori, and he hated to see her, in pain and stuff like it. You could sense that he just didn't like it. And so I feel like that was part of the reason why, he was like kind of struggling with, I don't even say struggling, but just like he wasn't liking that. And but I remember texting him like, DJ, he was like, I don't think I can do it. Yes, you can, DJ. You are doing it. Like, you are right here by her. And like she said, like he was telling her, you can do it, Tori, and I'm so glad and so proud of him, because I can only imagine how hard that was for him, because, and I remember Demetrius saying this once before, like, he hated that there was nothing he could do as far as like make the pain stop, or, he couldn't have the baby for us. So like, I can only imagine what that must be like for them. So Tori, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because you're right. So many times, especially I'm like in the hospital industry and stuff, like I remember, I feel like they had told you, or someone had said something to the effect of like, if he pass out, then we'll worry about him later type thing. We're worried about the mom. And that's just the whole vibe and message that is sent. It's like they're insignificant. So I'm so glad that you brought that up.
I was thinking how amazing it is that the DJ just wants to make sure he does the right thing. So he calls Pastor and them. And that says a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how you were saying, Alicia, like, have just the admiration that you have. Like, I've grown to respect that bitch ain't gonna ask a question. Like, if he doesn't understand, he's going to get clarity. But I appreciate just the humility that he has, just to, and that's something that I've tried to adopt in my life as well. Like, Tori, you don't know everything, so let's pull a DJ and ask a question. So yeah.
That's good.
All right. So we're actually just down to the last question. I know we talked about our diet. Or did we talk about our diets postpartum? I know I said for me, I got off of my diet. I was on an alkaline diet, just in case I didn't say it during this one. I think I said it in part one. I was on an alkaline diet. I was eating a lot of fruits and vegetables and all of that. And postpartum, it was so busy trying to juggle two babies. Luckily, Joel was in the NICU for like 2 weeks. And so we just had Micaiah. So, and they gave us Joel's feeding schedule. So what we did was we got Micaiah on Joel's feeding schedule. So when he came home, they were being fed at the same time. And glory to Elohim, they both fell asleep at the same time. So we got them on the same sleeping schedule. Yeah. So that was really good. But I was just so busy because, you know how it is when you have newborns, you have to feed them every every so often. And so I really, my whole exercise, because I was exercising with Octavian at one point when I was pregnant. And so that kind of dwindled. And then my diet, it wasn't that, I stopped eating fruits and vegetables and started eating bad. I just almost just stopped eating because I was just so into trying to take care of the twins. So yeah. And slowly I got back up on it, but I changed it from alkaline to more so pescatarian, or where I wouldn't eat like meats, instead like chicken and beef and all of that, like those meats that they add hormones and stuff to because of the fibroids, because fibroids pretty much grow off of hormones. So I tried to limit the amount of hormones that I know is being placed in my body. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just kind of like eat fish. Um, so yeah, my diet did change. And of course, the lack of eating did do a wear on my body. But like I said, I eventually kind of got back into it. But yeah.
Yeah, I had forgot that happened to me until you said it. But I do remember afterwards, it was like I just didn't eat. And that has never been my testimony. Like, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to eat. So I knew, like, when I was experiencing that, like, something's not quite, right here. And so I remember one time getting prayer, because I'm like, I was just an emotional wreck. I'm not eating, I'm not doing these things. And Dad was pretty much like, it's your hormones. Like, it was like, it ain't even that deep. You making it more than it is, like, it's your hormones. And he was right. It was still like my body was still trying to regulate. And even though it was definitely a spiritual battle or like things going on in my mind, it was more so what was going on in my body. And then like the thoughts that basically I had formulated all of these thoughts that were just imaginary. Like it wasn't a thing. I had made it up. Like, I don't know. I'm trying not to go too much into that because I know I've kind of touched on that. So all that to say, once I started making changes and getting back to taking care of my body, and also the changes that I made about how I looked at my situation, like it was like it just disappeared.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm reminded of this woman that we know. She said that I took one of her breastfeeding classes, and she was like, it ain't the devil attacking you, your hormones out of whack. And she was just saying, is that we just have to have knowledge of what's going on with our bodies after we have babies. So I did the same thing, except I did with both kids. Actually, I had stopped eating and sleeping. So for Dorora, I did it for like a week. But at that time, I didn't have any knowledge on postpartum care, postpartum depression. I just felt like I left the hospital with a baby and a pack on how to take care of the baby. Didn't know anything about that. In the second go round, and Alicia, you actually just made me realize this while we were on the podcast, that actually Kim saving me a spot was a provision that was made. And I never even thought about that until you said that. But I was talking to her about, like, she would, every time I went, what's your diet? Are you exercising? Like, those are like the main things she asked me at every follow-up appointment postpartum. And I was like, I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping. The kid cry all the time. And she would just encourage me all the time, make sure you're doing fruits and vegetables, whole foods, no processed foods, lots of water, still take your vitamins because you're breastfeeding, things of that nature. And so when I started, and it took me a while, I got to like the 4-month mark. And that's when I started, I quit CMOS for a while. And I don't even know why I stopped it. Could have just ran out and just didn't think to get it anymore. I don't know. But around the 4-month mark, I started going outside, started going on walks without my children, just to have a minute to just be outside, to calm down, get some vitamin D from the sun because we need it. And just because I ate a lot of pizza after the kid was born. I mean, I wasn't cooking, we didn't have a lot of help. My mom had went back. So we didn't, and grateful, like the ministry helped us with meals too. So I ate a lot of junk. I ate whatever was there and I drank water. And then around 4 months, things changed. So I'm a diehard advocate for that sea moss. Like, anybody want me to be a spokesman for that sea moss business?
It's some good stuff.
Hereby granted the position. But I wanted to say this really quick because something you said, a couple things that you said, but one thing that I've learned is, again, the timeline that we put on ourselves. Like, and I remember someone had said something to the effect of, if your baby is 3 years old, you still just had a baby. Like, it's really like I mean, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but the point is, like, it's like we expect, okay, 6 weeks, you should be able to go back to work. You should be doing like, yeah, that is so not accurate. I'm still going through changes at 8 months. Like, I mean, I still just had a baby. And I think that the more we realize that and understand that and give ourselves grace and focus on, what we are doing, focus on the diet, like, man, it's I don't know. I'm like, I'm not getting hoodwinked this next time because the devil really had me thinking I was crazy and I really just needed to eat and get sleep like most humans do. We need these things to survive. And I really thought that something was wrong with me and, all of these things. And it's like, no, you weren't getting what you needed to survive and to function like you're supposed to. So anyways, what I would just say to someone who may be going through that or feeling this way is focus on those, like, the little things matter. Right. What you're doing is important. When you drink that sip of water, like, it's important. You can do it. You are doing it. You need to do it. So I would just, I would just underscore the huge importance of your diet, pre, post, after, forever. Like, it's just super important.
And just real quick, Alicia, I know you mentioned that time frame that we give ourselves. I know it takes me a year. It takes my body a whole year before anything is normal, before anything is like in order. Like, and it was with my second baby before I realized that it just takes me a year to recover. Like, so just quit beating yourself up, like, and just take your sea moss and keep on going. Pray in the spirit. I'm gonna stay on that sea moss, y'all.
I see that.
But just be patient with yourself. And then even, just another layer that I won't go into a lot of detail about, but that physical therapy for that pelvic floor physical therapy was tough. It was hard. Like, it was not fun. I wanted to be done. I wanted everything to be normal, but a baby just came out of a whole entire human came out of it. So you got to give yourself grace. And with anything else that requires physical therapy, we will be patient. So another part of the body you got to be patient with. So
it's funny. I have recommend sea moss on my notes here about what to give health tips. But I would definitely, from my experience, I would definitely tell someone to pray, meditate, seek the Father. Stress can kill you. Just like you said, Tori, in one of our episodes, it will kill you. It's not that it can, it will.
Right.
And so definitely seek the Father first, stay connected, stay encouraged. And we already touched on health, and I like sea moss and herbs. And like you said, stay hydrated. And if you get a bad report, seek the Father. Seek the Father and go before the Father. And don't just take the report as the final say, because it's very well that it's not. So don't put it in your belief system.
And one thing I will add, you utilize your support system. Utilize your support system.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Because that was one thing, even when in my 4-month period, when I felt like I was drowning, I didn't talk to anybody. My midwife, she was like, "Are you talking to anybody?" I was like, "No, because I'm embarrassed." So no, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. And then, it was so backwards. I should have went to my leaders first, our mentors first. But I talked to my midwife first. And then after that, I went to my leaders, started talking to my husband, and even though he knew something was going on, but definitely utilize that support system.
That's so true. That's my testimony as well. I stayed quiet.
He be using the same tricks. I just hate that doggone. I hate that. But you know what? Because I'm just believing that because we are talking about it, that someone won't have to go through that same thing, and you'll see that dirty, stinky devil, and you won't do the same thing that we did, because it's the same story. Like that just blows my mind. Like he's not unique at all. The tactics and the stuff, it's the same. So now that we know, that's why we have to guard ourselves, be sober, be vigilant, like just make sure that we're on top of it and that we are informed, and like you said, stay connected. That's huge, because I did the same thing. I was just like, I'm good, just trying to downplay it. And because I was embarrassed too, because this was my second baby. So I should be fine. I should know what to do. So that's why I didn't, I wasn't as vocal. So anyways, it doesn't matter. Those were some great tips, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Right. Well, this concludes our session. If y'all want to reach out to Empowerment of Faith Kingdom Center for Ambassadors, the word that we get teaches us how to walk this thing out, how to apply the laws and how to apply the word to our lives, as opposed to just hearing it. And as we say a lot, mental assenting, hearing it and not doing what the word says, and actually it being reflected in our lives. So our website is empowermentoffaith.org. And you can also listen to our YouTube messages at EOFKC. And we appreciate you guys listening. We hope that this message was a blessing to you guys, and shalom.
Shalom.